So what else can I share with your listeners about the stuff we've been doing? This is very interesting to me, these kind of sit
Mhm.
downs, because so much of what you and I do together is me bringing in the art side of things, you bringing in the business. So for the folks listening to this podcast, I assume they must be getting a lot of the business side of the conversation, given that it's your podcast.
That would be yes. There was one thing I actually wanted to talk to you about specifically. Um, Tim Travers was a short originally, right?
It was. And it was not a proof of concept, which is an important distinction.
Mm-hmm.
The short film was never ever intended to be a feature. In fact, I think the longest goal I had for Tim Travers the short was I was seriously considering doing an anthology of it and a few of my other shorts. Um, Except the only problem I had with that was that the framing device I found actually more interesting than any of the shorts. Like I might go back and just make a movie out of a normal movie out of the framing device because I liked it so much. But Tim Travers, so this actually goes back to Treat Street, our little bleeping kids film, kids family film. Um, we already knew we were going to be doing Treat Street in Washington State with North by Northwest Studios. But because intuitively, I think I just kind of knew that Treat Street would be of such a bigger scale than anything I had ever done, certainly in terms of the production team, the production crew, something like that. I didn't want to create a situation where myself, the director and writer, was the least experienced person on set, which
Mm-hmm.
would have been very much the case had we jumped into Treat Street without some of these shorts behind us. And I'd already done a lot of shorts, but the idea I had, and I reached out to Rich Cowan with North by Northwest, was let's do a short and ignore the fact that it's a short. From every piece of production groundwork, from the paperwork to the pay rates, we are treating this as though it is just 20 pages of a fully budgeted feature, which made Tim Travers a little bit more expensive than I was used to on shorts, admittedly, but the quality of the crew and the learning opportunities that brought out of it were extraordinary. But that's literally what the seed of Tim Travers was from a business standpoint, was I wanted to expose myself to working within a big film studio production mindset for how I would shoot a project, so that when we came into Treat Street, I would not be coming in blind. This Now, Treat Street ended up not being the feature we did due to circumstances beyond our control and a few folks who shall not be named here.
Mm-hmm.
But what we learned from Tim Travers was so important going into the feature. I do not think I would have been ready to do that feature had I not done these shorts, and not just done these shorts, but done them in this way. Tim Travers started as a short, and then as we were going into Treat Street, because we'd already been greenlit, we had our funding in place, we had our shooting window in place. And then as the folks we were working with started to show their true colors, it became abundantly clear, even if it wasn't official yet, that we were about to get screwed and we were going to lose that money. But here we were with a production window, plus the additional funds that I had raised independently.
Mm-hmm.
Nowhere near what I needed for Treat Street, but still a considerable amount of funds that I had control over. And this was at this 11th hour decision. If I'm going to shoot something, I'm going to have to shoot it right now while I have these funds, while I have that liquidity, and while we have this production window with this production company that can handle it. What's it going to be? And because the Tim Travers short had just so comically overperformed on
Mm-hmm.
festivals, like to an absurd degree, like every award in this room, and you can't see it because it's not much. I've got probably 12 up. Every single one in here is for Tim Travers. Oh, and one little trophy for an unrelated film. But Tim Travers just freaking killed it on festivals. And I realized this was as close to a market testing as I was ever going to get. So
Mm-hmm.
I called up Sam Dunning, who had done such a great job in the short. And he and I had a lengthy conversation about what this story would be if this was going to be a feature. And then I called up you, and I think you already knew I was planning to do something at this point, but you and I were both still reeling from what had happened on Treat Street. But I think you had intuited I was going to do something, just
Yeah.
not what. And then I kind of pitched you, all right, remember the Tim Travers short? That's the movie we're about to make. You're going to be selling it.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. And maybe 90 days from the time you and I had that conversation, we rolled camera.
I was it 90?
90
I
days.
thought it was less.
Well, that's from the time the script was finished. This is from the time we had the conversation to make the film.
Got it. Yeah,
From the
that's
time the
probably
script
true.
exists, it was closer to 50, 60 days because I
Yeah.
still, needed time to write the thing. But the funny thing was, we were actually starting pre-production before the script was there because what I decided to do, because I had all these stages from Lab Rats and several unused stages with North by that I was working on at the time with various projects I can't name. And then a few other just unrelated resources in the city because I knew a lot of the folks that had worked on Z Nation. So we knew about a lot of their locations. I was actually functionally building the script out of the things I knew we had access to. So much of the writing. So we built that entire thing in Tim Travers with his radiation chamber is there because that's the rat cage from Lab Rats. And I knew I already had the prop. And it's massive, by the way. You could fit a dozen people in the thing, as well as a 7-foot, fully functioning human hamster wheel.